It's good to see you all. Welcome to After School Programs, Learning from the Getty Orchestras. After school programming, I see many people in the room who are engaged in after school programming. We all know in one way or another that it's a real growth area, not only for orchestras, but for education in general. There's a larger concept now of where and how learning happens, which is really recognizing, especially music learning and participation takes place in many places in our communities. Children and adults, we can reach them in a lot of other places than K-12 buildings. And we'll be finding different impacts on our communities and on our orchestras, depending on where we go out and find places to do our good work. The Getty Orchestras, what is a Getty Orchestra? Well, the League's Getty Education and Community Investment Grants Program has helped single out orchestras working to create after-school programs that align musical and social goals. These programs are seeing strong results, and we're going to learn more and explore what we can do in our own community from four really terrific, interesting, different takes on what's going on out there. My name's Ted Wiprud. I'm Vice President of Education at New York Philharmonic, and I'm really honored and pleased to be able to be up here with four very distinguished colleagues. I'll just mention that James Johnson is President and CEO of the Omaha Symphony. Leslie Scheuler is President of LS Associates. Dalouge Smith is President and CEO of San Diego Youth Symphony. And Diane Wittry is Music Director and Conductor of Allentown Symphony. So we're going to have a lot of different takes on a lot of really contrasting programs. And we're going to start off with Leslie talking to us about work she has done with a lot of different after-school programs in terms of data and evaluation and funding. Leslie.
I'm really happy to be here today with all of you. And just a little bit about myself. I have worked in the field of evaluation, program evaluation, for almost 20 years now. And I've had my own business for about 8 years, and we focus on program planning, market research, and evaluation for lots of different kinds of programs, including programs in arts and culture. And I've had the luxury of working with orchestras before through the Magic of Music initiative, which was funded by the Knight Foundation about probably 10 years ago now. So it's nice to see some familiar faces again. And then I've also had the benefit of getting to work with some orchestras in evaluating their education programs, whether those be after-school programs or during the school day, etc. I'm based here in St. Louis, so I've done a lot of work with the St. Louis Symphony over the years. And then my own background, my formal education is in the social sciences. So a big part of our business is evaluating after-school programs that have social welfare goals, as well as programs that are designed to improve student achievement in school districts, particularly low-performing districts. So in the past 10 years, we've seen a real burgeoning of after-school programs and youth programs, summer programs, all of that. And it's really become an industry that is a lot more structured and a lot more specific in what it tries to accomplish these days than it was, like I said, even 10 years ago. And part of this increase has been driven, of course, by the need for out-of-school time care for students whose parents work, because we have so many families now in which both parents work. Also, the whole original drive behind No Child Left Behind was to narrow the achievement gap between white students and students of color, as well as between lower income and higher income students. So this whole idea about narrowing the gap in terms of resources and opportunities that are available to disenfranchised populations has also been behind this increase in interest and funding and all of that for these types of programs. Nowadays, though, it used to be, even when I have a 12-year-old son, and even when he went to his after-school program, it was pretty much unstructured, kind of free choice time. So they could play kickball for 2 hours if they wanted to. They'd have a snack. They could play board games. But the drive now is really to make these programs more structured so that they are working toward achieving specific goals. And a lot of these are what we call youth development outcomes, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. But that they are just more structured and goal-oriented, and that, of course, presents a wonderful opportunity for arts organizations like symphony orchestras to be involved in these kinds of programs. So our own work with programs like this, as well as the research literature and studies of after-school and youth development programs, show that they can be very effective in helping kids improve their social skills and their interpersonal behavior, things like conflict resolution, improved grades, test scores, and work habits. And sometimes these are programs that are directly focused on academics, but not always. And we know from our own work that music programs are specifically good at achieving learning-related outcomes. And also, there is more and more research on how arts programs, music programs, but also theater programs as well, reduce disciplinary problems and risk-taking behaviors, and those risk-taking behaviors are things like teenage pregnancy, unsafe sexual activity, substance use, etc. So those are the potential outcomes for quality programs. So what makes a quality after-school or youth development program? We talked a little bit just in the past with the past slide about having well-defined goals and outcomes, so that programs are designed with an end result in mind, and then they are structured to achieve that goal using the specific skills that the discipline can teach. Also, having clear and specific plans for implementation where there's some kind of curriculum or some kind of structured format that's followed, and it's not just a very loose set of activities, but again, activities that are all goal-oriented. And the other thing that's become increasingly prominent in the literature, in the research, is this idea and the need for forming positive relationships between caring and supportive adults and youth. And this is particularly in terms of at-risk youth, disenfranchised youth, youth who might not have access to mentors and to adult support and nurturing in their home communities or in their overburdened, economically pressed schools. The other thing that has also been coming into the fore in the research is the need to have very consistent programming, and that it's intensive enough to produce outcomes. It doesn't have to be a lifelong outcome. It can be a short-term outcome, but a once-a-month program is probably not going to produce things that are much beyond entertainment, maybe increasing a little bit of knowledge, but not really able to achieve some kind of social goal. The other emphasis these days, then probably a lot of you are aware of this, is quality programs have strategies for evaluating how effective they are, and then for using real-world information, real-world data, to improve the programs so that they become more effective as the models grow and develop. The other thing that many of you may be aware of is that a lot of districts are moving to extended days. So again, driven by this, where all the parents, or both or one parent in the household, a single parent household, their more adults working, less supervision during out-of-time hours, and the need to increase student achievement is leading to the extension of the school day. And with the drive from No Child Left Behind and the emphasis back on science and reading and math, as you know, lots of districts have cut out arts programs. So many of them are focusing on now extended days and putting the arts back into the curricula. So the Wallace Foundation, who I'm sure you're all familiar with, has produced some reports on this in this specific area, the re-addition of the arts to school curricula through extended days. So if you're interested in stuff like that, then check out their website. So I'm sure all of you are aware, too, that there is a lot of concern that as arts organizations become more involved, whether that's in extended day programming or after school hours programming, there's a real concern that districts and policymakers will use that involvement as an excuse to continue getting rid of arts certified teachers in the schools. And we know that in order for the arts to remain an important part of a school curriculum and not just add-ons, that they need to have certified teachers and they need to be treated in a lot of ways like academic disciplines so that they aren't seen as fluff. And the first thing that's on the chopping block when funding is going away. So I know the League has taken leadership in this area, but to remember that the importance of advocating for the retention of certified music teachers when we talk about becoming more involved with schools or becoming more involved with youth and children in the community. Okay, now, what can music programs do? Music programs are very effective in addressing a lot of the educational and social outcomes that are in need or that are of focus in today's environment. Music, more than perhaps some of the other art forms, can improve student focus and concentration. We find that in our own work as well as national research. Obviously, it improves self-confidence and self-presentation skills, especially when it involves performing. Music programs are also very good, especially when it's ensemble-based, in improving teamwork and collaboration with peers. It facilitates creative self-expression and some of the creative thinking and higher order thinking skills that comes with putting together a presentation or a performance. And they're also very good at strengthening cultural diversity and awareness of cultural diversity and cultural identity. And an example I'm going to share with you is from the American Ballrooms Theater program that we evaluated, the Dancing Classrooms program that is now being replicated across the country. When we did their first evaluation of outcomes, something that we weren't expecting was when we were interviewing classroom teachers about the impacts that the ballroom and Latin dancing program had on their students, we found out that the teachers said that the students who were English language learners were beginning to speak up more in class. And when we tried to delve into this, we found that not only was the dancing and the music helping them express themselves more and getting them to loosen up some and express their creativity, but that it also provided some cultural validation because a lot of the students were, or either they or their parents were from countries where some of these Latin dances came from. So it was a chance to celebrate some aspect of their culture in a broader context, and that helped not only gain recognition for them from their peers, but it was also something they could take back and talk about in the classroom. So the other thing that's really strong about arts programs is they give kids who don't excel academically or have different learning styles to really shine among their peers and in their classrooms, in their school environments, because we know that a lot of kids who have some learning disorders or even social disorders and levels of autism and Asperger's can really shine in the arts. So it gives them that shot in the arm they need to be successful at home and at school and in the community. Last thing that we find about music programs that nonprofits and schools alike tell us is that they have so much trouble trying to get parents involved, trying to even get parents to come to a school or on site to a nonprofit organization like a YWCA or a Girls Inc. But when they have arts programs and the students perform, not only do the parents come out to support that and to see that, but when we talk to parents about what they value about music and this dancing program, they say, we want to participate. We want guitar lessons too. We want to be in the choir with our children. We want to learn how to do Latin dancing. So it's a real opportunity to crack that nut that other organizations have such a difficult time addressing, which is getting parents involved with their children, getting parents out to come to other types of programming. So the other thing that the arts are really being more and more recognized, and Americans for the Arts has had a lot of influence on this, that the arts is just part of developing the whole child, of developing a livable community, a community where the quality of life is very high. And so just keeping that in mind as you think about your own programming, selling your program, getting it funded, finding partners, that whole idea about contributing to the quality of life in a community is very important. We have found in our own work, we work with some municipal governments, urban governments, that ask us to find arts partners to come in and do programming in their parks. Because there is this growing, and they have funding to help defray the costs of things like that. So there's a growing realization that the arts contributes to health and well-being, and that more and more people are outside the arts are recognizing the worth of it in promoting social welfare, health, de-stressing people who are under a lot of stress, etc. In terms of funding for these programs, there's a big pot of money that's unfortunately been diminished a lot because of the sequestration and all the federal government funding crises. But the 21st Century Community Learning Center grants that is available through the federal government, it's not only possible for an arts organization to take the lead in applying for one of those grants and assembling a partnership of other organizations and programs that can go in to help address gaps in student achievement, as well as promoting skill building and learning opportunities that build transferable skills. And that would be things like teamwork, communication abilities, ability to focus and pay attention, those kinds of things, building vocabulary, etc. They could take the lead in that, but they could also be a subcontractor to another organization or to a school in participating in that kind of programming. There's also been a lot of federal money dedicated to urban education and to doing more, again, to address that gap in resources and opportunities for lower income and disenfranchised youth. So there are lots of national foundations that will fund this kind of work, and you open yourself up to a lot more opportunities when you are trying to reach some other goals that are this idea of transfer, that music can help accomplish a lot of different things that are extra musical. Also, private foundations, community foundations, and again, partnering with other organizations that do other things, like a youth development organization, can be a good way of attracting new resources and new opportunities. Okay. Are we doing questions now or waiting till the end?
Yeah, let's wait for
Okay,
questions.
thank you, everybody.
Yeah, so with that terrific overview of opportunities and outcomes, let's move to the specifics of three really interesting case studies with Diane Wittry from Allentown.
Great. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I think we're going to click this slide so that it goes. While I'm talking, what I've put together is just a series of slides that give you the flavor of the joy of that the students experience in this program that we're doing in Allentown that I'm going to be telling you a little bit about. So those will be just going, and we have at the very end a very short video where you get to hear some of the students talk about their experiences. So I'm the music director and conductor of the Allentown Symphony. And how many people in the room do educational concerts and programs? Yeah, that's why we're here. And this is part of our mission. It's something that's very, very important to us. I would say that about 3 years ago, we were gathering with some community people, and we decided to look at the equation a little bit differently. So often we measure our success in how many people we reach, and many of the grants require us to put large numbers. You know, we've done youth concerts for 10,000 people. We've reached 15,000 people. And sometimes that makes us look at our programs in a way that is great. We're reaching these students, but perhaps only in a one-time exposure. And so we looked at the equation differently because in Allentown, we have 91% of the students in the area are low income, from low income families. We have 87% currently that are on free lunch. And we recognized that we were not connecting with this community whatsoever. And we looked into starting an El Sistema program. And you're familiar with this model? Yes? Okay. Very few orchestras have done this. And I would say that we took a leap of faith, because when Sheila Evans, our executive director, is here. Sheila, raise your hand so if people have questions afterwards. And also Stephen Liu, our program director, is here. But we took a leap of faith because when we started this program, we did not have the funding in place for this program. And these types of programs are expensive, and I'll tell you in a little bit about the budget. But there were reasons why we did this. We had a vision, and we value education and learning. We wanted to develop a program that would develop a sense of responsibility. We wanted to develop a program that would change people's lives in a very meaningful way. And so the symphony got involved in what is really recognized as a social change program, using music as a vehicle, and not always classical music, music that resonates with the students involved. We wanted a program that would absolutely strengthen our connection to our community, and has done that 100-fold. And we wanted a program that would establish lifelong love of classical music, and done through participation in classical music. And we wanted a program that would bring the larger community together. Because when we really think about it, often as a symphony orchestra, we're viewed as being somewhat in an ivory tower. And that, yes, isn't that great that you perform music, but how is that relevant to my life? And how is that relevant to our community? So the program itself now has about 80 students involved. And there's a handout that you have on the tables, and I want you to look at it. You know, the first page gives you some basic information, some statistical information, some information about our community. But the real data that I want you to look at is really on the back side. And this talks about our enrollment, it talks about the demographics of our community. But really, it's the testing data that I think is really making a mark. And Stephen, our program director, has been so wonderful in really gathering all this data in a way that we can see how remarkable this change is in these young people's lives. So you can see that with the statewide testing, we have a lot of students that perhaps are not testing at the levels that we would hope. And even though we're not able to test all the students at this point, this test is only given in certain grades, in third grade. But you can see already that the proficiency level is rising dramatically. And that's really remarkable for this program. Our program involves after-school interaction for 2 hours and 15 minutes each day. The students come, we have a partnership with a school in the school district. We chose this school because it had a great commitment to after-school programs. Choosing the right school is critical in the relationship. The school district has supported this. They work with us with providing busing for the students to get home. There's a lot of logistics that when we went into it, we probably were not really realizing how many logistics had to be worked out. And Stephen's done a great job in coordinating that for us. We currently have a full-time program director, and we have 3 other teachers that are paid by the hour. You would think that might not be a problem to find quality teachers, but we have to also recognize as symphony orchestras, we can't afford to pay a huge amount. Many people use the after-school hours to teach privately. And so you have to address that in your community. But what it has opened up is opportunities for younger people to teach, and also we've developed a core of volunteers connected with some of the local universities that have gotten involved with our program. One of the special things we've also offered, which is unique, is a deaf and hard of hearing camp in the summer. And I think that this, so often people think that people with disabilities can't have that experience, and this was just a remarkable thing that our board really got behind. This is, as I said before, an expensive program to run. Our budget currently for this program is about $180,000 per year. And so you do the math and you think, well, that's 80 students. How is that impactful? But I have to say that the ripple effect of this is amazing in the community. And I'll talk about that in just a little while. Some of this money you might think would have cannibalized other sources in our community, and I will say it really has not. We were able to reach out to grants and things that we were not able to apply for. The partnership with the school district is vital because it's a partnership in a completely different way than when we were just saying, here are our youth concerts, here is what we do, please come and enjoy these. We were partnering with teachers, but not in this same intimate way. We also recently had a challenge grant, so large money was coming forward and then people were becoming involved in the greater community. One of the wonderful things is this El Sistema program is based upon performance. And performance is the model in which the way we build self-esteem. And so even at the very beginning, before they've barely mastered their instruments in any way, shape, or form, they are out there performing. And this has then also proven a vehicle for getting word about the program to the much larger community. So often with our educational concerts as a symphony orchestra, we're limited by funding. You want to impact the community, but you don't have the funding to send your orchestra out to all these schools. You don't have the funding to reach out to those community centers, the hospital, the senior centers. And therefore, to have a program like this that serves 2 purposes. The performance opportunity is wonderful for the students involved, and it's also a great collaborative for getting the symphony's name out there in the larger community. We have partnerships with the elementary school. Oh, it's probably done with the slides, so yeah, there was a certain number of slides, which means I should probably get on to the video. But let me just quickly go through. We've partnered with the United Way, the Boys and Girls Club, Air Products, Kutztown University, Moravian College. We have tutoring provided by some of the local universities. But let me talk for a minute about the ripple effect, and then we'll go to the video. Leslie had mentioned earlier about the parent involvement. You think you're only impacting 80 students, but in reality, you're also impacting their families. And the larger family unit, so not just their parents, but their grandparents, their relatives, their friends. And so we see that with that one child, we are not just changing the child, we are changing the nucleus of the family. And then we're finding that we're also changing the school. Because as those children stride down that hallway with their instruments in their hand, with that pride of, I'm a musician, I can play this instrument, it changes all of their relationships with their peers, with the students that are not in the program. We have a waiting list for this program. And so it changes the environment of that school. And then it also changes, once again, the environment of the community, because every time those students go out, people are moved and people say, how can I help? How can I get involved in this project? So as a symphony orchestra, you might say, well, in hard times, why can we put this much money into this one project? And I say because it's relevant and it takes your mission to a much deeper level in your community. So I want to close with a short video that has interviews of 2 students and a parent that really tells you, I think, what this program is all about. And Leslie's going to help.
Try to help.
Yes, it's special to me because I love my instrument. I like about the program that I play my instrument every day, and then I like to play my instrument every day, and I can see my friends, and once in a blue we go outside if we do good work, and then we have concerts, and then we go somewhere like this, Virginia.
I am just in awe of what he's done for my children. Like I said, I have 4 children, and all of them have become kids that I didn't know I had. This program means a lot to us. It's really brought out a part of my children that I did not realize were there. I've noticed a lot of improvement in how they interact with one another, for example. They help each other actually practice the songs that they practice during the sessions. And it's made them better students also, because the focus that they've had to develop as a result of this has transitioned to their schoolwork. So that's been one of the biggest improvements I've seen. So
what I have in common is that they have this, like, a really special spirit, you know what I mean? Like, because being in El Sistema is like, anything that happened bad in the day, like, you forget everything about it, and it's like, pretend like something that you really like, right? And then like being in a concert and playing, you ever seen like people, they start to play really fast? That's like the spiritual thing that you get in your heart, you know, like playing really good and stuff.
Wow. Okay, good. Let's go out to the West Coast. Dalouge Smith from San Diego.
So we're going to show you some video first. It's about a minute, and it's from the end of the year cluster concert, which means that we had our 7 elementary program students, middle school students, and high school students all together. The community we're in does not have an auditorium, so it's in the gymnasium, and you will get a sense of how how the work we're doing is bringing people together. These concerts did not exist before we started our program. We were the ones to initiate them with the middle schoolers and the high schoolers. And this is the culminating moment of the night after all of the different groups have played their own individual pieces. And what they're playing is an arrangement by one of our teaching artists who also is a composer. I think you'll recognize the music. is that those students are not all playing at the same level on their instrument. There are students in that group that have only had instruments since January, all the way through to students who have had instruments, to get them up into high school. Where's our, this is it, okay. So, so I want to, no, I don't want that view, I want this view. Where do we get the views? I do this on my slideshow. There we go, okay. So I want to share with you kind of how did this organization get to that. San Diego Youth Symphony has been in San Diego since 1945. We are have been a traditional youth orchestra program. Originally, for the first 50 years, very exclusive. If you didn't get in, you didn't get in. Our music director now, he's been there 17 years, but when he came in new, he really kind of opened up the scope of opportunity and started to build additional levels. So we now have 4 full orchestras, 2 string groups, 4 wind ensembles, international partnership with Rotary Youth Exchange, chamber music, a whole array of offerings. But still, ultimately, it turns out we were serving the wealthiest, most affluent students of our community. This distribution is from 2008, and that north coastal 43% represents the highest income area in San Diego County. The South Bay, which is down near the Mexican border, represents one of the lowest. So you can see we were not serving our community in total. And so when we looked at this information, when our board of directors looked at this information, they were a little bit shocked. It just hadn't occurred to them, frankly. And they really decided that it was important for us to live up to our name. If we're the San Diego Youth Symphony, we need to be serving all of San Diego County, not be the North Coastal Youth Symphony. So we took this information, and at the same time that we were doing this analysis is when the prominence of El Sistema really became more and more established. We had the good fortune of being close to Los Angeles, so every time there was an event talking about El Sistema, we would go up, or this is in those years that Maestro Abreu came to the league conference. So we immersed ourselves as much as we could without actually going to Venezuela to learn and understand about the social change goals of El Sistema and how those function within a community and kind of what were the values underpinning it. And we decided that we as an institution, not just singularly as a program, but we as an institution needed to establish a vision for ourselves to make music education accessible and affordable for all children in San Diego County, and that we needed to view our work as social change work to make that happen, because we would never reach the full 500,000 students of San Diego County alone. We would have to do that in partnership, and primarily we would have to see that the public school system was investing in music education. So we established 5 activity areas, 5 strategic activity areas. The first is programming, and we began in October of 2010 with 65 third graders at 2 low-income schools near the Mexican border in a small city called Chula Vista. There had not been music in these schools for 10 years. We just learned recently that there's not been a visual and performing arts specialist in this district for 23 years. So this after-school program was the first time in that long that students were on campus playing music, learning music, that parents were coming to performances, and that the administrators were actually interacting with musical culture and musical life on campus. But when we went into it, we were very explicit to say, we are not your music program. We are here to demonstrate to you all of the benefits that can accrue to these students, to the campus, to the community, if there is strong music education. We knew also going into it that we needed to be partnering. This was not a standalone initiative. I think you're going to hear that theme throughout the afternoon or the morning, that This is not about the San Diego Youth Symphony and Conservatory. This is about the community. And we needed to become citizens of this community and have the same priorities and the same interests. And in this particular case, that interest is on the success of these students and their achievement, not just academically, but their achievement as young people moving toward maturity and adulthood. Let me just point out here that we've partnered not just with the schools, not just with arts organizations, but with universities, social service agencies, and each of these partnerships has opened up doors to additional opportunity. We actually got pulled into a Promise Neighborhood grant because of the partnerships we'd established, and that's one of those large federal grants for strengthening communities in total. We've also been looking at the grades, or not the grades per se, but the test scores. This is really the tip of the iceberg of evaluation and research. So program, partnership, evaluation, and research are the 3 of the 5 activity areas. This shows you our students in our program having higher end of the year standardized test scores than their peers, the grade in total. We've done this examination at several different schools, and the data is consistent. So the school district, even though we all know this is not directly correlative data, they are so enthusiastic by this outcome, by the engagement of the parents, by the attendance of parents at events, as well as the overall behavioral changes. So they're doing their own analysis and evaluation, and we're doing our own. But in addition to this, we've now partnered with UC San Diego on a brain study, a cognitive development study. There's a 5-year National Institute of Health grant that is funding a cohort of our students being cognitively tested and scanned every year for 5 years, looking for patterns of change and development and impact because they're participating in music. So that's not work we also would have ever kind of considered or been interested in prior to this. But our belief is that all of this data can be used for the long-term goal of making the case for the return of music to the schools. The 4th area is community awareness, and Diane referenced this, the use of performance and the telling of the story to build community knowledge of what it is that is happening with these kids in these neighborhoods. These 4 areas, community awareness, evaluation, partnership, and program, ultimately in our mind lead to community action. And this is an example of the students in our program being invited to perform at their school's academic awards ceremony because so many of them were getting academic awards, as you can see from the proud medals they're holding up, that the principal thought it would be a good idea to feature them as part of that whole ceremony. So that's sort of the entry point of community action. The really kind of the grand ambition is for the school district to start investing in music in the school day. And we found at the end of our first year that the school district wanted to invest in us expanding the program from 2 sites to 6 sites. And then the 7th site got pulled in as a result of the Promise Neighborhood program. That was a year and a half ago. At the end of last year, they asked us to start helping them develop an in-school pilot program for 3rd graders so that every 3rd grader at the original 6 schools would have music instruction during the school day, 90 minutes of music instruction. Just as we were getting that started, the school district told us that they were ready to announce that they wanted to return music to every single campus for every single child for 90 minutes a day over the course of the next 10 years. We have 5 school sites that are committed to hiring full-time music teachers for the coming year. Those 5 sites put them in the queue to be considered for VH1 Save the Music Instrument Grant, so this will be an instrumental music program. And the district, as a result of having absolutely no internal knowledge or capacity on how to run music programs, has asked us to be their temporary music specialist for the next 3 years to advise them in the hiring of these teachers, help them with the professional development, help them with the scheduling on the campuses, help them integrate the music instruction with the school day instruction. So our great ambition, which was this, is beginning to actually take place. Thank you. And we believe it's taking place because of the intentionality of the after-school program, not because we thought, well, we can only afford to reach 65 kids, but because we thought if we can reach 65 kids extremely effectively, then we're going to be able to successfully make the case that every child should have this opportunity. And we're proud to say that that's what's turning out to be the case. So thank you very much.
Great, inspiring. Now, it's not all El Sistema out there, right? We're going to go to Omaha with James Johnson from the Omaha Symphony, and a different kind of inspiring story.
Great, thank you. Good. Whoops, sorry.
Let's try this again. There we go. Sorry.
I hope you all are accumulating questions. Just to let you know, as they prepare this, following James's presentation, we're going to take just a little while for questions from the floor to the panel, but what we want to move then to is the availability of each of our panelists individually. So we're going to have them at separate tables, and you'll be invited to come ask them specific questions, you know, which will really ramp up the amount of information exchange we can do. Okay?
No, that's fine. That's a forward.
Sorry. Green button. Thanks. Yay. Whoops. Excellent. Thank you.
There we go. Yeah.
Very sorry. Oh.
Click on the windows.
Yeah, you got it.
Sorry. Good enough. Okay. Let me try one more time to do the little arrow thingy. Anybody want to come there? Yay!
All right.
Start it.
No, I'll start. Good afternoon. I'm James Johnson. I'm the CEO of the Omaha Symphony. And I'm going to talk a little bit about a modest program in comparison to the first two you've heard, but one we're very proud of. It's part of our entire education effort, so by no means is it all we do, but it's one of the, I think, interesting and moving programs. More Than Music is a partnership with Girls Inc. It's been going now for about 5 years, and the idea is that it's actually, I think the origins of it are a wonderful story. This was a senior in high school. It was her volunteer project. And she decided that wouldn't it be great if some of her colleagues in the Youth Symphony would get together and mentor younger kids and teach them give them private lessons under the auspices of the Omaha Symphony. And that's really where it got its start. And we've been working with Girls Inc., who hand selects kids to participate. And really it's about a 4 to 5 month program where we provide weekly lessons on their instruments, kids who are just beginning to play, or we actually are providing the first lessons to these kids. And then we do, the elements include, besides weekly lessons, we do parties and social interactions between the older kids and the younger kids. There is a recital component where they do a recital at Girls Inc. and also on stage at our hall. for their families, not with the entire audience, but for their families. And so it gives kids definitely a performance aspect, a social aspect, and a learning aspect during this program. Some of the questions about the program have been, well, can't you give this experience for kids for years ongoing, and can't this become a regular part of their curriculum or their learning? And the answer is really no. These kids are they're often transitional living. Many of them are homeless or in shelters. These are kids who are really at the bottom of the poverty scale. And so we believe that we're best at making a short-term, intensive impact on these kids. And it's possible that they may come back into to music mentors and into more than music the next year, but oftentimes we find that they've left the community or they're in different living situations. So we're trying to make our impact one that's strong, but we know that it's going to be short. Now, we prepared about a 6.5-minute video, and I'll let the kids and the mentors and our advisor, Ann Nagoski from the orchestra, who is the one who's coaching the mentors, and in turn the mentors are working with the kids. I'll let them talk about the program. As I said, it takes about 6.5 minutes to experience it, and I hope it'll be interesting to you.
RT flower.
So, Anne, why are you involved in the More Than Music project?
I was interested in this project from the start a few years ago when it first began as the senior project of a young woman in town who's a cellist. And I thought it was a great idea to pair high school students with younger students for two reasons. The younger students don't always have the opportunity to take private lessons, and that's so important to have that one-on-one time when you're learning an instrument. And then it also gives the high school students a chance to learn a little bit about what it means to be a teacher and to be a mentor and to be a role model. And I think it just benefits everyone all around. I'm really hoping that they're walking away with a love of music and an appreciation for what is possible in their lives, whether it's with music or with something else. I think a program like this is absolutely invaluable to these kids because it can give them so much more than just what we're doing right here. It can give them a long-range plan. It can give them the inspiration to do something really cool with their lives.
What did you think of your first lesson?
Awesome. It was so fun. Definitely with her and with me. It was awesome.
And what do you have to do for next week?
I'm gonna learn the other verse of it. No.
What do you have to do first?
Oh, you bring my instrument, get sticker, then we're gonna learn the middle of it, and then try to remember. And I'm gonna try to memorize it.
So what are you going to do between now and your next lesson?
Practice at home. I'm at Upstream.
So what do you think so far of working with your mentor, Joanna?
She's really nice, and she really inspires me one day to be that good of playing a violin. My mentor, she encourages me. She does like these different songs to help me memorize the notes, and to help me memorize how to hold it and stuff. She's really nice. She's really great. She's really respectful and responsible.
All right, so can you guys tell me, since you started doing this program with your mentors, Emily and Joanna, do you think that you've gotten better at playing the violin or the viola?
My opinion is that yes, but I still need more practice because fantastic because I still
My
get to
opinion is I do need to practice because I get stuck on some parts and I be like, I need help a little bit. And then Miss Emily, of course, she helps me.
My opinion is yes, because I'm good at it. Like, all of us is good at it. And, like, practice makes you great.
How?
And it expired young girls like me.
It's hard, isn't it? We have to be really coordinated on our instruments. Okay, I have one more victim, right?
I love the program. It gives our girls a chance to get more one-on-one attention and to develop a deeper understanding for their instrument they play and to love performing arts, not even just music, performing arts and the performance piece that goes along with it is really important. It's a great opportunity for the girls.
When you have a mentor, you really have to listen to your mentor because they are telling you very good things about what you can do with your instrument and how you can play it.
They would come one week and they'd kind of just be like, we have to do this. And then the next week they'd be like, oh, I practiced this, I can do this.
How we had pizza parties.
Just knowing that I helped them and seeing how much they enjoyed it. And I think I enjoyed it like twice as much as any of them, even though they enjoyed it a lot. So.
And once you're in the big performance, don't say no and just go up and do it. And don't be a chicken.
And also, I think a higher confidence in my playing because I found that I didn't scar anybody for life.
And we got to play in front of all of their families there.
Are you going to keep playing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to do it next year too.
This was one of the best experiences that I've ever had. I am really hoping to be able to do it again next year.
I think the students have gained in confidence. I think they all rose to the occasion of having to perform for their peers and for their families. And I think one or two of them maybe didn't think they could do it before it happened. And by doing it and being successful, I think they really got a boost of self-confidence. The mentors, I think, really grew just as kind of as leaders and peer models.
If you're watching this video and you're kids, I want you to follow your dreams, and if you wanna and chase after what you want to do, and you should be in this program because it's really good and it's a really great experience. Bye.
Thanks very much.
Oh, terrific. So again, we're going to take just a couple minutes for some questions. If you have some questions that you think are very generally, applicable, that something that you can follow up on that one of the panelists talked about, we'll do that. Please use one of the microphones that are out there in the house. We'll do this for just about 5-6 minutes, and then I'll explain some table arrangement for getting more up close and personal. So any questions to lead off right now? Yes, please.
Omaha, what was the funding responsibility from your orchestra?
This is to whom? To all?
No, to
Oh,
the
Omaha, I
mentoring
see.
project.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks. It's a fairly modest program, as I mentioned, and but we were able to raise funds to support this, so it is self-sustaining in terms of the funding. Does that answer your question, or what specifically are you looking for? The amount.
Where did your money go? I mean, what were you paying for?
Oh, well, we did actually give a stipend to the high school mentors, modest as you can imagine, and also to the musician who was their director. And we also invited the kids to the social events. We paid for those. So there was no cost at all to the kids. If we had to provide an instrument, we took care of that as well.
Yeah, great. Other questions? Yep, please come on up to the microphone.
Hi, this question
Hi.
is for Leslie. I loved your presentation. I actually would love a copy of the slides, if that could be available to all of us.
Absolutely.
Great. The indicators that you are tracking in terms of the impact that we're all making with the students that we work with, including adult-child involvement, are those indicators ones that you're working with foundations to identify as they're looking at what kind of impact programs are having? And I ask because it can be pretty open-ended on the front end,
Right.
which is just, are you working with low-income families?
Right.
Period. And then I thought that was quite helpful in my own discovery, that we basically talk about those things, but don't sell it home necessarily for how many hours we have youth and adult mentor contact for, and other examples. And I just love a little bit more information.
Sure. Well, by and large, and there are exceptions, but what foundations and funders want to see is that you're taking steps to evaluate what you do and to track your progress. And so they want to see you using indicators, but they tend not to be specific. So that when we work with organizations and programs to find ways to track things like cooperation or conflict resolution, things like that, we usually design simple tools that the staff of the program can use, like on a pre-post basis with participants. And funders like that idea. Funders love pre-post kinds of things. They love data tracking, of course, with like standardized test scores or discipline rates. Although I will say that it's best to have like 2-point-in-time data. So the cross-sectional data can look good, but the kids in the programs who are scoring higher might have been scoring higher before the program anyway. So it's the change over time that you should compare to the school overall rather than just 1-point-in-time data. But then, so at the foundation level, there is work on becoming a little more systematized about what they expect. But by and large, they really want that to be driven by the organizations that know the most about what they're doing and what's realistic for them to achieve. Does that answer the question?
Yes, and I have a follow-up.
Yeah.
In the indicators that you pulled out, which I thought were excellent, are those 5 to 10 trends ones that you're tracking in your work in education and social development that are the indicators for child success?
Yes, that's what we tend to see and focus on. There's also a whole youth development literature, and the asset-based approach to working with children and youth is really big right now. So there's an organization called the Search Institute.
Great.
And
I'm
they have
very
listed,
familiar.
yeah,
Great.
and they even have surveys and things like that that you can use as models. And if you just Google
Great.
youth development evaluation or youth development indicators,
Yes.
you'll find some really good stuff.
And just one follow-up.
Yeah.
Another buzzword.
Yeah.
I know, I'm sorry. Just one quick follow-up, because I think it'll be helpful for everybody. Executive function is another buzzword that has come to play. I haven't seen it used in really any music development programs except for a couple in the El Sistema network. Would you recommend that we go far into that?
You know, I have to tell you the truth, I don't even really know what executive function is. So, yeah.
Whoa.
So, and that's the thing, creative thinking skills, critical thinking skills, a lot of these terms get bandied about, but what they mean specifically can depend on the context and things like that. But once again, there's so much now. You know, we used to have to go to the library and spend all this time in research journals and things like that, and now you can Google it, and, you know, I'm sure there's some really good definitions somewhere of executive function, but it's not something that I come across very often. You're welcome.
Thank you first for the work that you're doing. For someone who's been in this industry for the last close to 30 years, thank you very much. It takes a lot of time to make institutional change. And one of the questions I like to ask is, are you starting to see a translation of this work in your audience demographics? Because our audiences are going to look different, 2023, and if we don't start seeing different types of folks occupying these seats, I don't know how large this organization will be.
Excellent question. Who would like to go first?
Well, I can start, and certainly I encourage everybody to jump in. I think we're beginning to see, our program is too new and our kids are too young, but we are beginning to see the parents get involved because we work very hard to make sure they are getting to our concerts. I know Stephen works with transportation for coordinating that. We also did a concert recently where they did a pre-concert concert before a concert, and therefore they were all there performing and were able to stay and experience that, because you really do have to experience the symphonic concert, you know, in the concert hall. And for these young kids, I mean, I was standing backstage as they're lining up to go on, and so much excitement. I mean, I think for them to perform on a symphony stage. So our program is too young, but I anticipate, because we've already set up the channels for that, that will build over time, and that we will see that transference.
In terms of our enrollment in our traditional youth orchestra program, the answer is absolutely yes. We have at the end of the first year, we had about 15 of the students from the Community Opus Project enroll in the entry-level group at Balboa Park. This past season that's just ended, we had about 25, and we have just completed our enrollment for next season, and we have 50. So the demographic mix will evolve over time because they're all coming in at the entry levels, but it's consistent with what we've seen in other community partnerships in other neighborhoods, that it's as much about opening up the pathway as anything else, that, you know, giving these kids both the opportunity to know that the Youth Symphony exists, and then also making it so that the possibility feels doable for them. It doesn't seem like it's this far away place way off in Balboa Park. We started to bring them to perform in Balboa Park alongside students from our traditional youth orchestra program during that first year, and then helped make the transition possible. So it's grown.
Comment, James?
I would just say, let me add to that. That's not the goal. Certainly not of this program, and I don't really feel that that's the goal of our community and education outreach programs. We're not necessarily going to, we hope that in 30 or 40 years' time there's some dividends paid, but certainly we're not doing that for that purpose. It's really more about redefining the orchestra's role in the community. And that's an important objective for us, and this is in and of itself the end, not the means.
If I may chime in just briefly, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the St. Louis Symphony's In Unison program, but it's a partnership with African American churches, and one of the original goals of the program was to try to bring a more diverse audience into Powell Hall for the regular concerts of the symphony. Now that the program has been active for a long time, we did an evaluation of it several years back for the program funder, and what we found was that it's amazing, it's done amazing work to develop some parallel programming, but it has not brought a more diverse audience to the hall for the standard concerts. So what they do get is a lot of collaboration with the churches and doing things on site at the churches with symphony musicians, and that they have an African American History Month concert in February, as well as a gospel Christmas concert, and those are extremely popular. It's done a lot for their perceptions of the orchestra in the community, but it hasn't necessarily translated into their regular audience. Yeah. We find that with other types of organizations. The Pulitzer Foundation for the Arts here in St. Louis did an amazing program that was a collaboration with an organization called Prison Performing Arts, and some social service agencies that served homeless vets and people coming out of prison. And it was a program at the gallery of the private art. It's a nonprofit organization, but a lot of it's a private collection of the now deceased Joseph Pulitzer. But anyway, they came to the galleries on a regular basis, and it was like a job training program because they were developing skills and soft skills like showing up on time and being motivated and things like that. But they put together culminating performances that were based on their reflections to the art, their reflections of the art, and their own exercises and team building activities that were done throughout the duration of the program. And when they had their performances, their families came to see them. There was a richly diverse audience. But it's really the community programs the Pulitzer does that brings in diversity, but not their regular offerings have not, the audience hasn't changed that much.
Yeah.